at the beginning of the game. We'll see what happens here, though. We are seeing that there is no switch up of sides, as at least the ban from RNG this time, the Sejuani there as well. It'll be that Caitlyn Annie yet again for TT banned away.
I hope that TT does take away the Ashe this time around. However, the Elise has been banned out by RNG, so if they decide to ban out the Maokai as well, that does get rid of most of the AP junglers for Beichuan, and that does force Yukal into something, I guess, more mage-like, and it does open up the carry potential for both Yukal and Huanfeng on what champions they want to pick. The Ashe gets taken off by RNG, however.
Don't want to first pick it.
They don't want to first pick it, but Jerry is still available, so that's great. Yay! I love Jerry.
Jerry's great. That Zeri person, nah, but Jerry, great. I do wonder if they just it's the Lucian ban, so they realize that maybe that Ashe ban does signal that RNG want to go with something more aggressive. They take away the Lucian. We'll see what the first pick is for RNG.
I think the first pick for RNG, it is going to be the Maokai for Wei. It is currently getting hovered, but that does mean Huanfeng can pick up something like the Zeri Lulu for this game too. I mean, Huanfeng on a carry is always a good thing for the side of TT, but that does get rid of all the AP junglers that Beichuan potentially can pick. So Yukal this time around might need to pick a mage for that mid lane to make up that lack of AP.
Yeah, I would definitely wonder if they want to try to adapt that strategy a little bit more. Now, we did see TT grab at this as their first pick the last time around. We'll see if, in the first phase at least. But I do want to see if they want to pair anything up with it that's more aggressive, potentially. A little bit of forward facilitation in the Vi for Beichuan.
Vi definitely provides that easy execution for these skirmishes, and that's exactly what we were lacking from TT, where they looked a bit lost, but the Felix gets locked in for Huanfeng.
Something we don't see as often, but we actually got to hear a little bit, at least from LPL Fan Club when they translated Jaculev's interview. They're saying we're going to see a lot more of those, late game carries where the minute skill gap between the players doesn't mean as much, and you're looking at those big late game fights. Well, we do, at least for now, before the ban went away, or the picks went away, it was the Felios Zeri. So right back to normal, I feel like, I guess, from last year.
I'm pretty surprised that RNG got the Zeri once again. We saw how good that Gala piloted this champion from game 1. Definitely, I mean, Varus does provide a lot more engage now paired with the Vi, so these team fights are going to be very straightforward. But something like the Aphelios, we don't see it very often because it is just such a weak champion in that early game. So it requires, or it demands at least, a lot of good execution from Huanfeng for this game too. And it does scale relatively well. He is that hyper carry later on into the game, but I think Zeri is just a better version of that.
I hear a lot of Zeri bias here. There's one thing. There's a lot of guns Aphelios has, and I don't know if we count who wins by how many guns they have, but if we did, Aphelios would win. I do wonder what they got to pair up with that, though, on the bottom side of the map, especially when we have seen so much kind of presence from Ming so far in the series. Would love to see him kind of stick on that, even if it's not the Ashe.
I mean, they can opt into 2 choices. You have 2 choices, TT.
Two whole choices.
I hope people know what I'm referencing. Please, that was a reference. Maybe I'm just the career boo, but it doesn't matter. So we have both these hyper carries coming in for game 2, where Zeri and Aphelios both pair up extremely well with Lulu. So we'll have to see who does pick up this Lulu for the game 2. But we could also potentially see something like the Nautilus and Leona, where both supports just don't care and they just full send it.
Looks like we're remaking to some extent, I guess, to where we were. Yeah, there have been a lot of issues with the games tonight so far for RNG and TT. We do get the now, I guess, pickup of the Zeri, which was locked in, I guess, before. But maybe that's where the issue was and where we had to kind of remake the draft. I would wonder if they try to take one of Yukal's specials here, hovering that Jace.
That was a bit of a scare because I'm pretty sure Angel does not touch a champion like Jace, but it gets locked in, but potentially this Jace can get flexed towards Breathe, and it will just have to depend on which matchup is better for this Jace. However, we do see a lot of blind Jaces because it just does so well into the Mage champion pool. And once you do have the Vi locked in for the side of TT, that does mean that Yukao might need to pick something like the Cassiopeia for this game too.
Would actually really appreciate this. All right, so they do lock it in. So a lot of lockdown coming out of the mid lane for Yukao, but a lot of that late game carry potential as well.
It does seem that we don't have the affiliates for this game too. We got a bit too excited for no reason. Lulu does get banned off for TT this time around. They're just trying to get rid of all the survivability for this Zeri. But yeah, back onto the points for this bottom lane. I want to see something like the Leona versus Nautilus for these two support players. Both very aggressive, especially Ming. We already saw how much command power he had in these team fights. He just had a really clear idea of when a fight should when they should take the fight and who gets caught extremely easily. So if RNG gets something that can lock down people that are caught, I think it's looking very, very good.
Do like some of these bans. Obviously, you already said the Lulu there, the Heimerdinger though, big, and the Jax as well has to be there. Was another one that was potentially at risk of slipping on through. But now that we're looking at the support and the top side matchup for both sides, at least for now, I would wonder where this last ban goes towards. If we get any of that strength kind of taken away, that's top side again. But it is the Gwen.
The Gwen does get taken off the boards for Hoya, so that does mean that RNG is looking at something like the Scion for this game too once again. I mean, Breathe, although he didn't know how to drive, it doesn't matter because he was quite literally unkillable in those team fights. So what is Hoya's response to something like that? Because he does look like he's hovering the Cassante.
Well, we talked about it earlier, Kitty, and it will be a bold pickup for Hoya.
Yeah, most definitely. Cassante isn't as popular anymore because he did receive a slight nerf on his CC in general, where on the W and Q3 it has been reduced. So it is quite the interesting pickup over Scion. I think Scion is definitely more powerful out of the two, and he does offer a lot more frontline compared to Cassante in the current meta. But that does mean RNG, what are they going to pick for support? Because I've been saying Nautilus, Leona, both very aggressive in terms of RNG's team composition. And it does mean Jace is going towards Angel this time.
I like that adaptation from RNG. Again, I like your point, though. They need something that gives Ming some of that proactivity in his calls here. And something that can leave Gala on his own on the Zeri, say, hey, we'll check back in with you when you're a big carry potential later. It is the Nautilus, which is exactly what we would want from RNG.
Yeah, what is Yaya going to respond with though? I like this Braum pick. There is a lot of engage from the side of RNG for this game too, so you're just negating so much damage, especially from Jace. If he lands one empowered Q, I mean, half your health bar is gone. And this bottom lane 2v2, I mean, with this Braum, it's looking pretty good for TT.
Interestingly enough, we've gotten a Cassiopeia, we've gotten the Braum for TT, in a bounce back game that is much needed by TT. Kind of smacked up the mouth in game number 1 after that pause, and had some stuff going for them. Those early games looking good, and this is a team that's fighting to be in those top 5 conversations here, to much of our surprise. But they're really going to have to hit that bar of execution this time with a very stalwart composition coming out from RNG.
TT definitely needs to redeem themselves from that game 1, especially with how well the early game went for them this series. But yeah, both of these teams struggling to find that first struggling to get that win streak going as we approach playoffs very, very soon, I believe in a month. So it's really interesting to see TT introduce something pretty new. They have the Cassiopeia for the mid lane, the Braum for this support position this time around. A lot of defensive abilities for these team fights where RNG, they are going straight for you. But if TT is able to negate the initial engage and kill them off one by one and play around the Braum passives, I mean, the team comps for these 5v5s is looking pretty good.
It is indeed. And TT again trying to bounce back in this best of 3. They're sitting at that 6th place at 5-3, while RNG are steaming ahead after a lousy start to the spring split with a 3-win-in-a-row streak trying to make it 4 here tonight with a 2-0 sweep over TT. We're getting onto the rip for game number 2. It's RNG versus Thunder Talk Gaming.
You know what's really interesting, Mazel? This time for game 2, we had Angel on Jace and Wei on Maokai, and that's exactly the identity of TT and how they've been piloting their previous series. A lot of jiayous from the fans as well. We do wish for a 3-game series because I think both of these teams have a lot of potential, and the game 1 was extremely close until that chrono break. Can TT really turn back the series, though, is the question.
Now, last time we got to see RNG go with that cheese sauce early in level 1. They had the switch up of lanes. They had Bree taking the camps in bottom side. This time we'll get a very much more standard start for both of them. But I do want to keep an eye on the early vision game between both junglers, because while we put a lot of eyes on Angel and on UCal, who are deserved of them, especially in this kind of draft we have going for ourselves, it's about that early focus and proactivity that we've stated so many times for both Wei and Day6.
The jungle pathing is definitely going to impact this game a lot because we need to turn our focuses to bottom for this game too, because top side it's Sion and Cassante for like the 10th billion time, but we have Nautilus and Braum for this support matchup where whoever engages first actually loses, because you lose a lot of your health and just the amount of CC that it provides. So both laners need to play extremely careful and smart with how they take these trades.
Ming going for that early trade, does get in the bush, gets those concussive blows onto him, and takes a decent amount of trade back. Won't be able to get that, oh, they actually do in the end. So a little bit of extra gold given, maybe a little bit of XP, and trying to fight over this level 2.
Does look like RNG is going to get level 2 for this bottom lane first, but back onto the point where whoever engages first in these trades, I mean, loses realistically because you already used out the hook. Oh my lord,
you
he's dead.
Ain't losing if you're flashing though. Huanfeng has to use both of his, and
Gala?
a flash from Gala tries to get that killer instinct.
I respect it, Gala. The idea was there, but sometimes the execution just isn't. Huanfeng, however, loses 2 waves for that trade as Ming landed a beautiful hook onto the ADC of Huanfeng. And you definitely don't want to be behind in levels when it does come to the 2v2s, especially when both junglers are pathing towards this bottom lane.
It's an early plate over to RNG's bot lane as well, and again, I came out of game number 1 saying, so is Gala going to get Zeri again? The answer was yes, and I feel like now we're in one of those diagrams where, you know, if Gala gets Zeri, then this. And so far, you're just getting that kind of early aggression down bottom lane. It's working out for them, waiting on that late game carry from Gala, but it is an early path that doesn't lead to much, at least just yet, for both junglers.
Huanfeng now has to play the lane extremely carefully as both junglers are showing on some vision in this bottom side river. But like I've been saying, unless you get hooked as the enemy has a level 1 advantage, a level advantage, then both sums from Huanfeng are gone. I believe he also had to ghost to try and get his way through the minion wave for safety, but does mean Ming is going to be able to pilot this game and control the tempo for RNG once again for game 2.
A little bit of a bounce back on bottom side for TT, at least in terms of the laning. They did also get the scuttle crab down there for Day6. The reset had come out from Wei. An engage though from Ming onto Huanfeng. They're trying to put some damage back into Ming, but it's traded heavily in favor of RNG.
Ming doesn't miss. I mean, Day6 has to force this wave in, or maybe even here for a counter gank as Wei is pathing towards that top side. The wave is slowly building towards TT, however. He does get spotted on a ward in that middle brush, so RNG knows. But Huanfeng, you can't keep getting hooked by Nautilus. It's so scary.
He's having flashbacks to the enchanted crystal arrows hitting him. And maybe have a little bit of trouble there. That wave is going to be in a nice predicament here for Colin Ming to actually get a nice little engage on the back end of it. There's the Unbreakable as he's still taking so much damage, even through the big meaty shield. And RNG have gotten priority in bot lane.
RNG is going to once again push this wave in as Huanfeng is going to miss an entire wave for the 3rd time. I mean, 2nd time, but technically he's lost 3 waves. Huanfeng is going to stay though. Yao getting hooked previously does mean he had to reset. But just the pure potential of Ming landing that hook, I mean, even with saving that counter pick for support as they responded with a Braum for game 2, it doesn't look like the laning phase is getting any better for the bottom lane of TT.
Yeah, it's a little bit rough for sure, but here comes Beichuan with a little bit of proactivity in getting the first dragon for TT. So something they tried to stack up last game were derailed by RNG. Looks like Wei is just gonna be perfectly fine, kind of farming this one up for now, and should just be that first objective going over to TT.
Yukao does manage to get lane push in this Jace and Cassiopeia matchup, however, so the first dragon is going to go towards the side of TT as they had the vision set up from Yukao earlier. But Gala, I mean, he has the boots already, so maybe he can potentially outplay if there is ever a 3v3 instance in this game.
Maybe just remember that we have reset from last game, Gala. Don't go too ham, just too early. It does almost have that level 6 mark though, with Wei also almost having that Nature's Grasp. They just have a lot of setup tools and a lot of spacing that we were saying TT kind of had a lot of in some extent last game. As now Wei will walk himself into a 1v3 situation and quickly sees himself out.
Wei's just checking the tides as he put some saplings into that tri-bush of the bottom lane for TT. But yeah, like you've been saying, the level 6 spike for both junglers is going to be so important for these skirmishes as there's a 1v1 in the top lane.
That's an all-out Hoya. He's trying to get it, but that's the unstoppable onslaught used. The knockback not going to be there. And Hoya tries to go for the 1v1. Can't find it.
And this is exactly why you play the Sion into Cassante. They are both such good laners and extremely tanky while doing a lot of damage, but when you see another reflection of yourself in the mirror, well, you're not going to be able to finish him off. So Breathe does survive, however, burning the ultimate.
Huanfeng did dodge out of the dredge line down there on the bottom side. Now Beichuan with a path towards top side should be spotted out here by some clever warding of RNG.
He is going to spot Beichuan on this ward in Tribush, however. Breathe potentially can trade 1 for 1 because Hoya doesn't have that ultimate available.
Up here as well. They're going to try to get
There's
something.
2 dives.
They're looking for it. It's a little bit of a split focus here. Breathe is pretty tanky. Nice knockback from Wei. Gala is trying to kill Huanfeng while there's a 3v1 in topside that Breathe is trying to take. Under tower go both teams and a kill across both sides. As now Angel has showed up and it's a 4v1 in bottom side RNG. They're going to come out with a 2 for 1 in terms of these crazy trades.
But first blood goes to Beichuan as it was like literally a millisecond difference between the kill onto Breathe compared to the kill onto Huanfeng. But you need to know that this was a 2 for 1 trade where this Zeri picked up the kill. On the other hand, you had a Vi. I mean, yes, you can be building the Black Cleaver early on into the game, but you need to know Gala popped off on the Zeri pick in game 1.
He absolutely did, and it's looking like he's about to take off right where he started there. We did see the Rift Herald go to TT, but here's how the bottom lane went.
Very fast response, cross-map play from RNG as they saw that everyone was rotating to kill Breathe off in that top lane where the ultimates were forced from RNG and they were just straight up focusing down Huanfeng as he's still level 5 compared to Gala where he has activated the ultimate. It was a little bit tough autoing the Varus behind the tower. Huanfeng did try his best, but Yao being a lonely Braum in this bottom lane, surrounded by RNG members. Angel does pick up the kill.
Yao had an out, but he's like, no, Huanfeng, I'm not going to leave you. And then they die together. But I appreciate that, the cohesion. And honestly, I want to see some more of that, at least to some extent with the composition they have. I don't think they're going to find as much strength in the bottom lane now than they could have earlier, but I'm definitely looking at this balance between Beichuan and Yukao and try to get Yukao some resources here on the Cassiopeia.
They do have a lot of lockdown. I mean, Breathe is just doing something really cheeky. They're getting rid of the Raptor camp from the enemy team, but yeah, once the Vi gets a lockdown with her ultimate and Yukao is able to put down that miasma, it is looking like a guaranteed pick. But how is TC going to set that up is the question.
Here they come. That is a quick flash from Yukao. Nicely done. Wei is right behind Beichuan. But you do have the flash burn by Yukao, so a little bit of something to return to from RNG.
Bit of a hustle in this mid lane. Ming nearly landing that hook. Jesus, he doesn't miss. but Hoya is going to pick up a wave in this top side as Dragon is spawning in 40 seconds. Yukal is just going to TP back as he resets for that Rod of the Ages. But we need to remember that Breed no longer has that TP available and ultimate, so this is going to be a 4v4 in the bottom lane.
Now we're looking at another dragon spawning here, where again, last game, TT put a ton of resources in trying to get those stacking for themselves. It didn't pay out. But what's paying out right now for TT is this top lane push and almost a third turret played here. And we have first item completed for the mid lanes of both sides.
RNG's carries haven't gotten online just quite yet. And you need to play really smart with the poke from Wei and Angel on these two champions. But the vision is looking like TT favored, however.
God, those
K'Sante
every
has
time
rotated
Maokai
early.
makes it through. H1 will actually use the Rift Herald in mid lane as a bit of a distraction here.
Is it worth as a distraction as Breathe is TPing into this bottom lane?
Oh, Huanfeng, he walked into a poor little kitty cat. And then he dies for it. Gala gets the kill. Now the lockdown on the way. They got Breathe coming in from the side. Wei will gladly give his life if he can get all the kills to Gala. But the CC from TT is a little bit too strong here. They're trying to follow up on a Breathe. He's taking them up here. He's about to go into zombie mode as Hoya gets locked in. Goes unstoppable there, though. Nice little engage for the Glacial Pritcher. But it doesn't matter because Angel is untouched and Gala is flashing forward with all the flashy plays of RNG.
Gala 3-0 once again. This is looking like a repeat of game 1 where you don't give Gala the Zeri champion, although it was looking good for the side of TT as they got 2 picks from, I had 1 pick, sorry, but Ming's hooks in this game where it started off the entire fight where Huanfeng just walked into a little kitten to start everything off. Ming spotted that instant commitment with the flash hook and gets rid of the ADC of TT. While Cassiopeia still has that Rod of the Ages, she doesn't do enough damage, and one of your core carry members is already dead before the fight started. All the abilities committed to the jungler for this fight, but you know, doesn't matter because the carries of RNG are still alive. You kill Sion, it was a 2-for-1 trade, but doesn't matter, you have to kill Sion a second time because of this passive.
Yeah, and then this engage here while he goes unstoppable. Hoya forced to go back into the team fight. Fisher came out, but it didn't do nearly enough to separate. And then once Gala smells a little bit of blood in the water, we saw it all last game, we're seeing it here again this game.
Ming is feeling really good for this series up against TT as he is just playing amazing.
Wait,
ultimate
he's in the pit. Here
Breed.
comes the choo-choo trade, and here comes the anchor to knock them all down. Angel's going in as well. Gala's untouched here. Yukal, he's just sacrificing his life for the Ultra Shock, and the Thunder Crash. Thunder Talk have nothing left to say as it goes golden for Angel and a double kill for the man himself. That's a full team fight win from RNG.
2 back-to-back wins for the side of RNG as the second dragon also goes into his hands, but both carries, Jace and Zeri, 4-0. Game state, the kills are 10-3 where they're already having a gold lead with this scaling composition, and it all starts with Bree getting a wonderful ultimate onto Yukal as he is just completely caught out of position. A 2-man stun as well. Varus ultimate misses from Huanfeng, but this choke with Maokai and Gala, I mean, they just finish everyone off while Hoya tries his best to at least get a trade kill in this team fight.
Tries to get something, but going golden for Angel saves the day in that regard. But it wasn't even like a big one moment. It was just a team fight win calculated by RNG. They took down the front-sided members. There was nothing that Yukal could really do in the end of it. And now we see the sowing, I guess, or the reaping of the sow for RNG here. Now, it is an attempt by TT to try and get this Rift Herald. I don't think RNG are going to let that fly.
They do have the ultimates from Beitran and Yukal for this team fight. They can turn.
They're going in. Gala has gotten cease and desisted. He's over the wall, but he has the shield bow, and he's tanking up Beitran. As now the rest of RNG are tanking. Ming getting lower and lower here, but nice double knockup from Breed into the kittens. And now you got the re-engage from Wei that could come through here. He's about to have Nature's Grasp. Another double knockup. And RNG, they're just peeling through TT one by one. The kittens are raining hell on Thunder Talk Gaming. And the dredge line makes it stick even harder. RNG are wiping the floor with TT.
Mazel, it's an absolute massacre for this game too. They just got 3 back-to-back team fights, and this time around a 4-for-0 trade. I mean, Gala and Angel are just having the time of their lives. Angel can play AD carry champions. I'm so sorry for doubting you, but this is an amazing performance from the side of RNG. And it all starts out with TT getting a little bit desperate and turning on this Herald where only Vi goes over the wall and no one commits anything to Gala as they are still dealing with Breathe in the front line. 3-man stun once, and that's not it. He walks up and he lands another one onto the entire team of TT. And I mean, Gala just cleans up everyone from here now.
And I love that Wei jumps in, gets the kitty into the bush, and another knockup comes down from Breathe. It has just been clinical from RNG in these team fights, utilizing Breathe on this Scion, who has just been playing out of his mind in these setups.
Most definitely. I'm pretty surprised that RNG is allowed to play the Scion and Zeri for a second game in a row. I mean, it's just looking like a wonderful game to finish off the series. And the Herald does also go into the hands of RNG, where they're not stopping with the lead that they've generated in this early game.
They are not. RNG continuing to look. They gotta maybe twiddle their thumbs a little bit more here, though. They don't have much on the map that's broken down. They're trying to push down mid a little bit here, but it's a pretty substantial gold lead to have at 17 minutes in the game. And it's maybe a little bit of something that's difficult to tackle for RNG here.
9k gold lead at 17 minutes. I mean, I was just looking at the scoreline between these two ADCs. Huanfeng is just having a really rough time into a champion like the Nautilus, where if you miss position by a millimeter, I mean, you're going to get instantly CC'd from the side of RNG, and these team fights have not been too friendly overall for the side of TT. And with your Cassiopeia and Varus really depending on those item spikes, you need to try to do something to reach that stage.
We got second items completed for both Angel and Gala. As Ming and Wei were looking on top side of the map, TT just trying to respond a little bit here with some vision of their own, but they're being pressed in, and now Beichuan is being surrounded by cats. Oh my god, he does so much damage already. If he didn't have that shield, it's almost half his health gone already. As second item does get completed for Wei, and that's the Demonic Embrace Leandri's combo.
Something that will always be satisfying for me to see is just RNG has 5 pink wards in their pockets. Everyone on RNG just has a pink ward for this upcoming dragon fight. The vision control that they have for these major objectives is looking insane, and TT, they're struggling to find a way in.
We'll try to respond with something in top side with a bounty on the tower available. They're going to collapse onto Breathe as well. They are all inning this play as Breathe's still pretty healthy here. Take tower shots. Breathe. He gets one. He does lose the tower. Another knockup though. He is tanking up a storm right now, and he's trying to take a 1v4. He's already found 1 kill. He's not going to find much more as it's just a wet noodle fight, but he buys so much time. And they do take one. Beichuan is traded down, but the base is in absolute tatters, Kitty.
The tier 2 towers are just gone in this bottom and mid lane. I mean, you commit 3 people to killing Breathe and even trading one where he took ages to kill. You just don't have the damage anymore to ever kill off this Scion quick enough. I don't even think that was a worth trade. I mean, you do get 300 gold into your pockets, but what does that mean? 2 towers in the hands of RNG and also a dragon as well, where they've also lost complete control over this top side in terms of vision.
I'm looking now in a way with these items completed, kind of moving onto the map, and how much damage these little kittens will start doing, as he does have just that preemptive move for a lot of the vision that we've been seeing RNG set up and kind of stranglehold TT with. And right now, it is looking to try, at least for TT, to get some resources delved out to UCal, maybe into Huanfeng, but maybe even Hoya. And I don't think
Good
they can
pick.
do it because Beituan is just gone from existence. It's Yao Yao, has the flash, tries to get to Huanfeng. Does indeed, but TT's jungler is already down.
That does mean RNG looking to start the Baron. I mean, their lead is just insane at the 20-minute mark. Nearly a 10k goal lead as Beituan gets caught trying to just get some vision onto the Baron, however. But the amount of pink wards that they have available around this objective is impossible, especially when you're squishy.
I think TT realized there is not much hope rather, left in this one. UCal wants to try to make a play on the back. He has Petrifying Gaze. Can he make something happen? The Miasma's down. Breathe is tanking up, but UCal takes that first shot, and Yao Yao is getting very, very low. The depth charge comes through. Hoya's gone, and so is Yao Yao. Next to fall is Huanfeng, and UCal hasn't even gotten much off yet, and he is just pounded into the dirt and turned into some snakeskin boots as Beituan will try to go over, tries to get the smite. He is down, and that's an ace for RNG.
That was a 4v5, Mazel. Wei was quite literally in the Baron pit the entire fight, trying to finish off that Baron. Bit of a miscommunication, RNG getting a little bit greedy, but when your ADC is this fed in a team fight, I mean, you can do whatever you want because Gal is just killing everyone here. Look at Wei, he is just so committed to this Baron. I mean, he pretty much just tossed out an ultimate and some kittens and he just sat there. But Yao Yao getting consistently choked out from...
shield!
Yeah, it's terrible time to be TT for this game too. And just the amount of damage that RNG has available and playing into the hands of this Maokai pick, it is pretty tough to watch. As you also misses the Cassiopeia. Oh, I mean, everything's just going wrong for the side of TT.
Oh, and then catching on the end. Beituan, I respect it. Just trying to make something happen in the end there. It was a bold play to start it off in the first place, and we'll see if maybe TT on the back end of that can find something else on a Breathe. But they've had this story before, but it's not just Breathe this time. It's the whole darn train coming at you. RNG are taking down Hoya first. They'll move one by one. First and foremost, Hoya able to dodge away a little bit. Does get that back shot from Angel. It should just be the tier 2 tower falling to RNG's Baron buff.
TT definitely looking extremely dismantled. You didn't need to protect a tier 1 tower as your second tier towers have all been killed off by RNG ages ago in the game. So that was just an overstep from the side of TT. And now your front line is dead for another 20 seconds. I mean, that's just inhib for RNG.
Beituan is just doing his blue buff right now.
He's chilling.
I think that Beituan is saying that we're done with this game at this point. As RNG are just putting the last touches here on the tower. We'll get a TT stand here maybe with one tower left as Beituan actually has back now. So he's finally joining the team. Maybe just trying to do a little bit more for himself. But the towers, the inhib starting to fall here, Kitty.
The base is definitely crumbling bits by bits as UCal can't even do too much.
He didn't even hit the hook, but he still gets in range of the CC. And UCal, he doesn't even... Okay, at the very end, he gets the Petrifying Gaze in, but it does not matter because petrified in their stance are TT. They will not get to go up to 6-3 and put themselves at the top of the table because RNG are in a train ride from hell and they'll find their 4th series win in a row.
RNG picking up this 4th win in a row does mean they get their scoreline positive for the first time in the spring split. I mean, RNG looks like they're on a roll and they don't plan on stopping anytime soon, Mazel.
Are you buying train tickets or am I getting us both? Like at this point, we just got to get on RNG because they are looking so good.
We're definitely on the train of Breathe right now. He's played 2 games with Sign where he was just being a little... No, he's not a little train. He was a very big train, and he definitely wasn't unkillable for the side of TT.
Great stuff from RNG, and honestly, calculated is a word to come about this. I think they were very, very sure in kind of the strategies that they brought to the table. Game 1 definitely a little bit more wonky. Game 2 holistically clean from them, but it still begs the question that there was a turning point in this series where coming in and for the first half of that first game, it was neck and neck. And TT had so much going for them. And then that pause happened and it felt like the life had just been breathed out of TT. And I don't think we got that back in this series.
We definitely didn't see any positive signs from TT after that pause. And it was quite the lengthy one, to be fair, so it just sometimes it happens, and it was very unfortunate as it was in the middle of a team fight. But we need to congratulate that RNG had a very clean game 2, and it just looked like that TT was a mess from the very beginning, and they never had a chance of winning this second game.
Ming, when you give him tools to be aggressive and to shot call for your team, it's crazy. It's crazy what happens when you have him on Ashe and he's getting like 95% KP because he's just hitting arrows from downtown over and over again. You get the Nautilus in game 2 and he was just completely active on the map, finding hooks on Huanfeng constantly in a lane that it felt like that Braum was trying to neutralize to some extent. And it just feels so damn good to have Ming back in this roster.
Yeah, most definitely. Ming was probably my MVP for this game too, but we need to remind the audience that this entire game exploded in the early game because TT decided to opt into a 3-man dive on top lane for Breathe on the Scion, while the bottom lane of TT was getting the response dive from the side of RNG, and it became a 2-for-1 trade where I believe both carries of Jace and the Zeri picked up those kills, while the first blood went into the hands of Beichuan on that Vi, and we can see that even with the first blood, he didn't do too much.
And when we were coming into this, I think a big focus was that Yucal is literally the carry of TT at this point. And Angel on the other side still trying to kind of work his way into the RNG system. Although he has done a wonderful job in these last few series, it's always interesting to continue to see that growth, right? And we were seeing some trends where sometimes he's taking carries, sometimes he's taking a lot more facilitators. And we got both of those here in this series, where even on the Azir, he was scaling for late. He came down with the hammer in that one. And speaking of hammers, he came down with it in game number 2 on the Jace, and showing that, you know, he can do both.
Yeah, definitely a very good showing from Angel for this game 2 in particular, but that also brings into the point of Wei, where he is very happy to both play the carries and the facilitators, where Maokai, you just sit 2 screens away, throw some kittens into the bush, and you top the damage charts as the tree. And I just feel like once you do give over something like the Maokai, where he is acting as the solo AP for RNG, it's looking like a ticking time bomb for TT before they opt into those terrible major objectives.
Indeed, maybe that's what TT stands for, ticking time bomb. But we will have to see how they bounce back in some way. But to speak to the winners, we have an interview with Gala and Christina lined up.
Hello there, welcome to post-game interview. I'm Christina. We're joined by Gala, the ball laner for RNG. Congratulations on your victory. With this victory, you are on a 4-winning streak. Do you think that it shows you have found your competitive form back and find the appropriate playstyle in this meta for RNG, the whole team? 欢迎Gala选手来到我们赛后采访。恭喜 RNG 今天2-0拿下了比赛。那么在拿下这场之后呢，队伍已经是处于一个4连胜的火热状态了。你觉得这个4连胜是不是意味着队伍现在已经找到了最适合自己的竞技状态和游戏风格呢？
我觉得反正就是相比我们之前，我们明白了这个版本的游戏赢法嘛，然后就是知道怎么去玩了，但是到现在应该也没有玩得到特别好吧，但是至少知道就是路是对的，我觉得。
Actually, from my perspective, compared with our last performance, I do think that we have a deep understanding to this meta, and maybe we are not in the best competitive form, but we are trying to, in this way, try to get more victories. Second question, I'm curious about that level 1 lane swap in game number 1. What do you want from this lane swap, especially in this kind of very early game? 那么第二个问题想问一下 Gala， 在第1局的时候看到 RNG 这边在1局就做出了一个换线的选择，队伍是想通过这波换线打出什么样的效果呢？
因为我们在轩辕赛里试过赛人这个英雄，就换线就是比较赚嘛，因为他死了之后可以吃兵，然后如果就是下路就是比较压力比较大的组合，就可以考虑换线。
Actually, we have practiced this kind of tricks in scrims, and we find that if Sire, because of his passive skills, he can also get some minions, even he was Sire for the first time. And if our bot lane were under a little bit of pressure, we will try this tricks like what we did in scrims. Next question, I'm curious about your own performance on there in game number 1, because we have seen your opponent really push the mid laner so fast, and Twist Tunnel destroyed so many turrets in mid game. How did you balance your own farm and try to help your team handle this kind of pressure from your perspective? I think that you got 3 core items in 24 minutes. Oh, pretty good. 那么第3个问题想要问一下，在第1局的时候，可以看到对面的依托小炮这个点，在中路推了很多塔，也拿到了一些线上的压力。下路旮旯这边是怎么样确保自己的泽力完美发育，在24分钟的时候掏出了一个3件套，平时是同时怎么样和队伍一起来应对这个中路这个小炮这个点的压力呢？
因为泽力这个英雄本身就是我前面在上路吃了对面上单的人头嘛，然后我就本身自己就很肥，然后下路这样的话对面就对线不是很舒服吧，然后我就一直在吃杜森，然后就这样就是 AD 发育的太好了。
Actually, in level 1, I got 1 kill on top lane, and so I farmed pretty good. And in bot lane, I do think that our opponents they didn't play comfortably. For me, I can farm pretty well on this champion. Final question for you: how do you guys manage to play so aggressively in game number 2 and snowball the game very smoothly? 那么最后一个问题，在第2局的时候是一个速推局 ，RNG 这边是怎么样做到在前期就频繁做事，并且你们确保自己滚起了队伍的雪球呢？
因为那个我们辅助打得很好，他就是够中了对面 AD 嘛，然后打出了双招，然后我们就利用这个点，就是对下路发起了很多进攻，然后就是杀死了他们之后，他们其实这个前期阵容就很难玩了嘛，对。
That is because our support engaged our opponent, their bot laner, and their bot laner doesn't has a flash and the other summoner spells. So it's really hard for them to play. But for us, that we can snowball the game smoothly from the bot lane and we can play aggressively. I would like to give the credit to our support. Thank you so much for joining me. 谢谢高拉来到我们的下午采访。Back to you guys.